Kia ora, talawhalawa, malo balawi naka, whakalofalahi atu. Hi everybody, welcome. This is a conversation about diabetes brought to you by the Diabetes Foundation Aotearoa. My name is Pat. He riri tēnei ngō Ngāti Maru ki Taranaki, and today I'm very pleased, privileged, honoured and stoked to actually be in this beautiful studio having a kōrero about diabetes with my very good friend Graham. Hello my friend, how are you?
Kia ora, Pat.
Yeah, you doing well?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, thanks.
Tell us about yourself before we jump into this kaupapa, bro.
I've always been based in Tamaki Makaurau and affiliate to that, and so we were always taught our whakapapa, and we were told that our mountain was Rangitoto.
Nice.
So, hey, we always say that, and our river is the Wairoa River, which is the river that flows from the Whanau Falls down into the Waitemata at Umapuia.
Kia ora.
Yep, and so I affiliate to Ngaati Tai. Some people think we're Ngāi Tai, but we're actually Ngaati Tai. And my hapu is Ngāti Kohua, and our marae is called Ngaati Tai, which opens out onto the Waitemata, but we're sort of one of those forgotten tribes of Tamaki Makaurau. And obviously, I'm here because I have a bit of a history in type 2 diabetes through my family.
Firstly, appreciate you joining us in this space, and as you've mentioned, today really is just an open forum conversation, a talanoa really about diabetes, and just for the interest of transparency, Graham and I both served on the board for the Diabetes Foundation Aotearoa. I'm not there anymore, but that's still a position in a space that you hold.
Yep, I'm still a trustee.
Yeah, nice. And I love the mahi that the foundation does, particularly in South Auckland, but just in a broader sense too, a really important piece of the puzzle in terms of that diabetes space. Can you tell us just quickly a little bit about the mahi that the Diabetes Foundation Aotearoa do? Well,
I think there's so many different things they do, and the good thing is that they've started getting into the real place. Like they have a website where it explains all the things they do, and it's all about education and helping people live a better life. You know, they do those community gardens type thing. They've got a program where they took on a couple of years ago in relation to taking some of those children at risk. They were under 20 who were overweight and looking like they're going to be type 2 diabetics, and offering them some treatment and bariatric surgery and things like that. And it's all totally funded. No one gets paid other than the people who work the business, and once again, all that's sponsored and stuff. So we work within the community, mainly in counties Manukau, and we're slowly starting to help other areas in the similar type of space.
I love it though. I mean, the merit in that mahi from a Diabetes Foundation Aotearoa perspective is that it puts a face to a very local effort, And I think we see some of these mainstream organisations that serve a space, a really important one too, around diabetes throughout New Zealand in general. But to have a South Auckland based organisation right there on Alexander Street in the heart of the brave, and doing the mahi is a really important thing. So just want to mihi to the foundation and all of the kaupamahi that navigate that space on behalf of our people. It's a really awesome kaupapa, bro, and Karen and her team there do an amazing job. I wanna now pivot to you and your story. The point of today really is to normalize the idea of a conversation. I had a little saying that I tried to pitch in one of our strategy meetings a while back, but I think I got told no, was that diabetes isn't a death sentence, it's a life sentence. And of course that was met with some looks similar to one on my face now, which was, we don't want to try and align it to a life sentence like jail or whatever. But I guess the premise of that whakaaro for me was that you can live a prosperous and beautiful life with diabetes, and if you get the right advice, the right support. And I guess you're a testament of that. Yeah,
I think so. And I think before we were just Diabetes Foundation Aotearoa. I said, if you're going to call yourself Aotearoa, look at what the Māori words say to you. And te tumi mati huka o Aotearoa. People look at that, and basically it says death by sugar, And I guess, as you say, in my view, I'm with you. I think it is a life sentence, and you don't realise that until you're actually diagnosed. So my history goes back to my grandmother. My Māori grandmother, she died when she was 69 in 1969 as a result of having diabetes, and the treatment for diabetes in those days was very, very poor, I thought. And I think she lived out of town, so she didn't have access. She didn't drive, nor did my grandfather, so they didn't have access to medical stuff like they have now. And then my father, so she died, in my view, quite young. My father was diagnosed as a diabetic in the 1970s, and so he too was the subject of some of the medication, the way you took it. Like he used to have those, he used to inject himself and stuff, but there was no such thing as diabetic pens. There was no real diabetic experts that he got to see. And I don't think he appreciated how bad diabetes could affect his life in the long term, because he was still reasonably young when so he still led the lifestyle of a Māori man who loved his kai and his beer and, and his social life and stuff like that. So, but it wasn't until he was older that he realised how bad that was. Yeah. And then he got to the stage where his diabetes was so bad that he had to have a kidney transplant because he was on dialysis but didn't survive very well on dialysis. And that's a sad place to go and watch people with diabetes, when you see people in their 20s sitting there knowing that they're there the night before. They knew they were getting their blood changed the next day, so they'll go out on the town. But I don't think those people appreciated what's going to happen to them later. And so because of that, we had a family conference and he got offered to go on the list for a transplant, and he went on a transplant. They said it would give him 4 or 5 better years. It actually lasted 12 years.
Wow. What year, what's the year that this all took place? Like, give us the timeline.
So he was diagnosed in the 70s and he just got worse and worse and worse. But he was lucky because he met this guy called David Scott. And he's pretty well known in the diabetic world, especially in counties. John Baker, who's the chairman of the trust, he knows Scott was one of those pioneers in relation to diabetes, and he went to live at Kawakawa Bay with his wife to retire, and they became friends with my father. So he looked after my dad and probably extended his lifespan by easily 12 or 14 years. So he died in 2007 at age 72 because of he had a transplant. He then had to take all these drugs so that his kidney wouldn't be rejected by his body, which means he got a lot of infections, and he got one of those, and that sort of took its toll. But I come from a family of there's 7 boys and 3 girls, and I'm the only one who's so far got type 2 diabetes, and I was diagnosed in 1990 when I lived in the UK, and that in itself was a bit of a shock to the system. But I don't think you realise how badly that could affect your life until later on, and so my diabetes still came back to New Zealand, went to see my local doctor, got referred to the diabetes clinic, got treated there. I thought quite poorly, mainly because I was Māori. I think they think that because you're Māori and you live in South Auckland that you're not very well educated. That's the way I felt. Yeah. And when I told the dietitian, look, you can talk to me like a real person because I actually do have a diploma. I run my own business.
This is in the 90s, yeah?
Yeah. And so they never asked me back to that clinic. But I continued with my lifestyle, and really it just got to the stage where I was insulin dependent, but quite not that great. I was taking 2 lots of insulin, and then I got referred to John Baker, and he sort of got me into some drug trials. The drug trials proved that there was this drug on the market called Jardiance, and that sort of changed the way in which I was able to medicate myself. And when the drug trial finished, it was obvious that the drug did some really good things for me. So then in order to get that, because Pharmac wouldn't fund it, it cost me $100 a month to get that. And then, of course, I'm now on a new drug as well called Trulicity, which is a pretty good drug. And as a result of that, my diabetes is much better controlled. I dropped 20 kgs and I don't halve my insulin intake and stuff like that. I still take a bit of medication, but feel pretty good.
I want to unpack just before we get to sort of where you are now, which I feel like we've kind of arrived at. Let's just wind the clock back when you were first diagnosed with diabetes. Walk us through that moment, because I'm sure you can remember how you were feeling in that time. Did it hit you immediately? Is it something that it took you a while to process? Are you thinking, oh my gosh, mum and dad, et cetera, like what's going through your head at this time?
I think it's a bit of a shock to the system, really. I think you say a few swear words.
Yeah.
Because you think, well, how's that going to change my life? And the trouble is they don't give you enough probably information initially as to what to do, other than, make sure you eat the right foods and hopefully you won't have to go on medication.
Yeah.
But I think you put that stuff out of your mind as to that you've just been given a life sentence and you got diabetes for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
See what
why I said life
sentence?
You see exactly. I'm just telling you, you can keep that one, guys. Yeah.
But it does change your life.
Yeah.
And does make you think about where that's going to take you.
Yeah. Did you make immediate changes, or did you sleep on that for a bit?
I think you think about making immediate changes, but you don't really.
Yeah, story of my life.
But sometimes it's not a reality really until something else happens, and then you think, actually, my children are only young.
Yeah, right.
What happens if I die when I'm 69? How old will they be? And sometimes you think about that. So I changed my life a little bit. The first change in my life really is I stopped drinking alcohol for a start and drinking beer, because, beer and bros go together,
It's it's quite a daunting thing though. I mean, firstly, anything with the word die in it is immediately going to scare me. But I guess what's beautiful about your story for me, and we'll talk about some modern day stuff shortly, is that having lived through almost pretty much every ebb and flow of what you would determine the diabetes story in New Zealand, because you experienced it in the early 90s. Now, one would suggest that the process now is very different, in terms of being diagnosed and the support, information, education that's available now through the mahi of Diabetes Foundation Aotearoa, Diabetes NZ. There's a lot of info out there, right? Yeah. Equally, there's still a lot of prevention mahi that needs to happen. There's still a lot of mahi that needs to happen in the communities to remove the burden of diabetes, because it's an epidemic in South Auckland, yeah?
Yeah, but not only in South Auckland. It was interesting that I reached out to Tainui, for example, and John and I went down and spoke to them, and they invited us to a field day, and the thing that they were really interested in was these new drugs, Trulicity and Jardiance, and about how that can affect their people, because they were in the process of building as many dialysis units close to their people as they possibly could. And we said, well, here's an alternative. It's all about the medication.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people working in this space, all doing the same things.
I guess too, further to that point, because this speaks to the mahi that the foundation does, particularly the Gardens and Communities program, etc., is that whilst medication is super important for those that require it, and you should never be, you should never be adverse to the ideation that medication is going to support you. There's also a lot of preventative mahi that could happen before we get to that point, right?
Yes.
And I feel like if we put as much emphasis on some of that community mahi, i.e., eating the right kai, getting moving. I know the irony of me talking about moving and eating the right kai, but if we do that stuff prior to, I guess, the point where you were diagnosed, then potentially the stories can be different for so many of our people, right?
Yep, and I think the foundation does some really good mahi in that space.
Yeah.
And if you go to any of the medical clinics now, for example, you'll see a big poster about diabetes and saying, well, if you eat a bag of hot chips, this is how much sugar and stuff and how much fats and that, and all that sort of education. They do that schools education thing as well. But I think they just need to get out there. It's hard to change people's idea about diabetes. I always thought that if you looked at the Heart Foundation, now you can go to the supermarket and pick up something and it's got a Heart Foundation stamp on it. I would like to see us in the space where there's a stamp on there about diabetes and sugar content and stuff like that. But I think we're getting there now, especially in South Auckland. We seem to be pushing the barrow a little bit, and we're really getting the message out there. And I think but I think a lot of these people and foundations like Diabetes Foundation, New Zealand Diabetes, they seem to be hidden behind doors, and we just need to open the doors and let everybody in. So
yeah, I mean, we don't have enough time today to talk about the monopoly that some of these companies and big companies and organisations have on supermarkets and whatnot. You know, the fact that you can walk into any supermarket in New Zealand and be greeted by aisles of kai that is going to, that is not going to lead well for you before you get to anything that's good for you, is a testament to how big corporates run this country. But we're not going to turn this into that today. No. What I will acknowledge though is that there are some community advocates, ambassadors, and just some warriors that are absolutely in the trenches, ensuring that our people understand. I guess a question for you, in your experience through your diabetes journey, is that what would you have liked to have seen during your beginning phase of your diabetes journey? What is something that would have made things a lot easier for you, or made you change some of the behaviours earlier than you did?
Being treated like a person as opposed to a Māori would have helped to start with, I think. And I think because now those services are so different to what they are now. You go to the diabetes clinic in Counties Manukau at Browns Road, at the super clinic there, and you just see the people there who are getting this medication that they need and the help they need. If we had that, and I think part of my journey was also talking to my doctor and educating him after being with John Baker about the new medications, and he goes to different forums, and he said now, and you talk to my chemist, for example, who's in Papakura, and he said that I was the first one to start using the new drugs, and now there's lots of people, so everybody's getting the right message. And now that Pharmac has started to fund some of the drugs, but they fund Jardiance, but they don't fund Trulicity. Why don't you fund both? Because everyone's advocating, in my view, that, we need all these cancer drugs, but they're forgetting. I don't know how many. I don't think there's 55,000 people who need cancer drugs in South Auckland, but they certainly need the diabetic stuff.
Yeah.
And when we got that Jardiance, and it wasn't that long ago, I think it was like 14 years before Pharmac actually changed their mind. So I think the recognisation of perhaps of Pharmac and that diabetes was killing our people.
Mm.
We needed to fix that. And it just took them a few years, and I think they're getting better now.
Yeah. There's a point you made there around being treated like a person as opposed to, the way in which they received you. Would it be fair to say that your awareness of the situation has changed now? Do you think people are receiving better, better engagement in 2024 than they were in 1994?
I think so, because they've got advocates like John Baker and other people like him in those positions who are actually, they're such good people that they're making sure that those people are getting the right things, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And they're getting treated better. But I still think there's a little bit of
work to do.
Still a little bit of work to do in that space, and I think that's been identified by lots of different Māori groups around the whole of the motu, not just South Auckland.
Talk to me about the Graham in 2024. Talk to me about how you are navigating this space now. What still scares you about being a diagnosed diabetic, despite the fact that you have an immense amount of support, understanding, knowledge, and education now versus you did 20 years ago? What still scares you about today?
I think the thing that scares you the most is how long have you got with your mokopuna, because of your diabetes. So I sometimes think about that. And so I tend to spend a lot of time with them and with my wife and my own children and stuff. You just sometimes those moments are precious no matter how small they are. So I make sure that I give them as much time because you never know how long you've got.
Yeah, kia ora.
So that scares me, I guess, is
Yeah.
that you won't see your 3-year-old reach the age of 21. But I think that's an age thing, but that could happen to me sooner because of my diabetes. So I tend to look after myself a bit better.
Yeah.
And the way in which I'm medicated makes it easier. And I try and exercise a little bit as well,
Yeah.
to help that along. So
It's and the reason I ask that, question around what scares you is because I think I would, I'd go as far to suggest that there's a lot of fear around diabetes. I'd say there's a lot of undiagnosed diabetics in Aotearoa, particularly out south. And I often refer to South Auckland because that's a community I serve and that's the space I live in. Like myself, as an example, I was scared for so long to go in and find out because of this lack of understanding and awareness around what it means to be a diabetic. And I'd hazard a guess that there's quite a few people out there. So the reason why I asked you what still scares you, a veteran of the diabetes space almost, is because we need to normalize that. But not just what scares you, but what inspires you about the diabetes space today. Can you answer that question?
The thing that inspires me now is the fact that John approached me to go on the Diabetes Foundation Aotearoa Trust Board. Mm-hmm. And just to give them a different perspective, because there's a lot of very smart people involved in the trust, and they get the people's opinion, if you know what I mean. But the other thing that scares me is every time I go to our urupa at Kawakawa Bay, and you look in the urupa and you see the age of those people that are there, and you think, I don't want to be that person, because a lot of them are under 60.
Yeah.
And I'm past that stage now, so that's good.
Get out. Not by much.
Quite a lot.
Yeah.
Big 7-0 next year, bro.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, then you've already outlived your old man.
Yeah.
Yeah. That must have been in the back of your head. You got that ticking timer going, the old man was 69, I got to crack 70?
No, my dad was 72.
Oh, 72.
Yeah, my grandmother was 69.
Oh, grandma was, so you beat Nan.
Yeah, beat Nan.
Yeah, so, a couple of years still on the old man.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, jokes aside.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
Yep.
I think I totally get it too. The idea that you're not going to be around to see special milestones is, I think is a pretty good motivation almost, right?
Yep. And I guess that's why I've taken on board a lot of the stuff that I've learnt over the years and realised that, sure, you need to work, you need the money to live.
Yeah.
But you also need to balance that because you don't want to work too hard because that can have effect on your lifespan. But you've got to make sure that whānau first, And so,
I mean, that in itself, saying whānau first is almost the reason why you should look into whether or not, you need support in this diabetic space for our people. Put your whānau first and find out if you need the support, if you need help. Talk about it though. And I think the mental health impact or the strain on one's ability to stay focused around life when they've just been told they have diabetes. I know, both of my parents, and I've shared this with you, is both my parents are type 2 diabetic, and they live a very different life now than they did when I was growing up. And I still remember mum and dad being the rock stars of our home, both mahi hard, and they both, socialized and lived a really good life, and to see the version of my parents now versus, I know Father Time doesn't wait for anybody, and that's not lost on me too, but it is very obvious the impact that diabetes has had on my dad. And so, that in itself is a really sobering, quite literally, a reminder that you got to take this thing seriously. But that doesn't mean you can't have a bit of fun in life too. Hence the life sentence whakaaro that I shared earlier.
Yes, I agree. And so sometimes you tend to put that to one side, but the thing that you notice over time from my generation is that our parents and our grandparents didn't share a lot of information in relation to their health. I think one thing in the diabetic space that we don't talk about enough is that mental space, how that makes you feel afterwards, and I've always shared with my children so they're aware of what that is, and sometimes my mokopuna will say something to me about my diabetes, and that's when you just remember to take a step back and remember that your lifestyle and the way you lead it can make a difference.
Yeah, kia ora. And you're very vocal about your journey, and not just to those that you love and those that you're around, but equally, you've played a role almost by virtue of the mahi that you're involved in, but equally too the fact that you were a part of a lot of firsts, a lot of trials, a lot of, support and opportunity, particularly through your relationship with John and some of that stuff there. Do you have a sense now of responsibility almost in a rangatira space around sharing both your journey, but also some of the triumphs as well as the challenges of your journey, bro?
Yeah, I think so. And I think because of my age and my extended family, yeah, pretty close, that when people ask me, I'm quite happy to share. And sometimes even in the workspace, because there's been a couple of articles and stuff where I've made some comments, all of a sudden you're getting emails and phone calls from people who want to share that experience. And it's always about, oh, my dad was like that. And so it goes on. And so, but I think sharing helps. And I think if you're Māori and you're sharing, that helps even more. It's just a shame that I can't te reo Māori, and so it would be helpful if I could do that, but I still share with all my family, both Pākehā and Māori, my experiences, and at the end of the day, what they should be doing to look after themselves, because they've also got to look at their children and their mokopuna,
Bro, you don't have to speak Māori to connect with our people.
No, that's true.
And I think what you do is Māori enough, I te reo Pākehā is fine. I think it's a really brave thing, bro. Quite a vulnerable space too, putting yourself out there, because, and I see your quotes in the mainstream media, articles, and I see you putting yourself out there, and I think, man, that's brave, because in the 2024 landscape now, so many keyboard warriors and so many people that have got comments, and it's like, well, if you made better choices. I often say diabetes is the only illness that people have permission to openly comment about and gaslight you into thinking actually you're responsible, particularly if you're Indigenous. Yep. Not just Māori or Pacifica, but most Indigenous peoples. If you've got diabetes, you should have made better choices. Less pies, Pat, you'd be fine. Like little things like that. But actually...
But the interesting thing about that, recently one of the guys on the board who's quite well read and got a few degrees said, people got to understand, if you have too much sugar, you're not going to get diabetes. It's all in your gene pool.
Yeah.
So they don't understand it. Our gene pool, Māori, Pacifica, and now they're recognising Asian as well, have the same problem. So it's not about having too many pies.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes you can't help it.
No.
But you can help yourself.
Yes.
And you can help others.
Especially if you're in that space. If you've got diabetes in your family, you just want to think about that, but you're not going to get diabetes because you had too much sugar, you drank too many bottles of Coke, you know?
Now look at us just exchanging nice things about each other.
Oh, yeah. Kia ora, bro.
You get me emotional. What does the future look like for you? Obviously long and prosperous. But
I don't know about prosperous. I think as your children get older, they get more expensive. But
as we've learned this morning, about to get a bill for.
Yeah, exactly. And my mokopuna. And I think, some people save their money and when they die, they hand it out. I say, if my children need some money now, it's better to give it to them now because that's when they need it.
I'm going to send this video to my parents. It's a beautiful philosophy, and I know there's a lot of people nodding right now. Love it. Spend it while you're here.
Well, some people have sort of criticised that I still give my children pocket money,
Yeah.
But what the hell? To me, it's about now because you never know what's around the corner,
Yeah, true story.
Yeah.
I want to finish on a couple of things. The first is just, again, how proud and privileged I am to share this space with you, because I think it's a really important topic of conversation, one that needs to happen more often. Because I genuinely believe that, like most things, you can live a really long and beautiful life and manage diabetes. And the more of our people, particularly Māori Pacifica, but all people, the more of our people that hear that and believe that and truly subscribe to that mentality, I think would save a lot of lives, because I know a lot of people that tap out the moment they hear that news because, oh, well, what's the point anymore? You're the point. There is a really clear point. So I wanted to share that. But secondly too, can you quickly touch on some of these trials and some of the things that you've done in that space? Because I think our people are often, and I know coming out of the pandemic, there's a lot of misinformation, a lot of people a little scared based off the fact that we all took, 3 jabs for summer and all that stuff. So a little bit of hesitation around things like trials. I know I've been asked to be on a few trials, and naturally I'm like, I'm good. And a lot of people say, oh, if Graham's okay being a guinea pig, tell me. Yeah. So what did you go through the process of that?
I think when John offered that to me, I always thought back to my dad. Now, when he got a kidney transplant, they were trialling a drug, and I think one injection cost about 10 grand. Mm. And they asked him if he would try it. And he said, yes. And I said, why did you do that, Dad? And he said, well, if I do it, I may benefit 100 people. Mm. Or even if I benefit one person. By doing that trial, I make it better for one person. Because his life was changed a little bit because he became a Anglican minister in the Māori church, and so his thought process was changed. And I always go back to that. Do the drug trial because you might help one person. It's a bit like you tell a story to 2 people, they tell it to 2 people, and it continues. And I think you should not be afraid of doing those trials, because every time you go there, they'll say, there's 1 chance in 900 that you might have some after effect. And you think, well, but still you might benefit somebody and save someone's life, Yeah. So I think if you go with that philosophy that you could help someone, I think that's the way I feel.
I love it. Any final words of wisdom from you, my friend?
Oh, I think at the end of the day, you still got to live your life. And if you're a diabetic and you're a type 2 and you're taking medication, someone asked me the other day, what do you take? I said, look, I take 11 pills a day. I inject myself twice a day and an extra one on Sunday, and I live a great life.
Is that one on Sunday holy?
No, it's just the one that's the Trulicity one that made me lose 20 kg. So sometimes it's just about the medication.
Yeah.
But, you're taking that medication for a reason, and there's been a lot of people who have been through a drug trial to say that those things are good for you, Mm. So, hey, I live a pretty good life, and most of the, I don't have that many friends now because I've got too many mokopuna to look after, so, but that's all good. And it's all around sport as well, so that's great.
I love it, bro. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of your story. I thank you for sharing.
Kia ora.
Thank you so much. That's us, Whanau. Thanks to the Diabetes Foundation Aotearoa for the mahi they do in this community, and we look forward to bringing you more in this space. Kia ora.